everyone, this is another video from Easy Electric series, and today we want to talk about the fault codes and also review few popular actually fault error together. So if you take a look to the fault code pages on the datasheet, you see actually there is a table here. You could see the all faults that you have here on the VFD. So here you could see there is a two different type of the error. There is some errors like this, which there is a one on the top right side of them, and there is others that there is not any one on the top right side. So the errors that you see the one on the top of them, so here you see their explanation. They are auto reset run type fault, and you could configure them with the parameter A92 to 93. So that means these errors you could actually automatically can be reset using parameters A92 or 93. We already explained A92 or 93, just if you forget it. So 92 is auto reset tries, and 93 is auto reset delay. If you remember, we actually have one video that with auto reset tries, you could technically say how many times you want to reset the error automatically and what should be the time delay between each reset. So A92 say how many times do you want to somehow reset it automatically. 93 say how many time delay between each of them. So for the errors that you see no one on side of them, so that means they are not resettable. So these you should actually go and fix the fault before you able to clear manually from your VFD, and even the drive input power also need to be turned on and off to able to clear the fault. So that's actually two things that you need to consider, which is you see two different type of the error here on the table. So before we review some of these error, there is actually one other things which is somehow it's nice to know. It's actually the parameter D7 to T2 D9, so which is a display group parameters. With putting the D007, you could actually have access to the last fault of the VFD, and with adding we putting 8 and 9, somehow you could have the access to the fault before that. So technically with D7 to 9, you could actually have access to the last three fault that you get on your VFD. Okay, so also it is good to know about A100, which is a fault clear. So if you put that on the 0, it's technically is just ready do nothing. But if you want to reset the fault, you actually put 1 in A100. And if you want to clear your buffer, in other words, you want to clear the history of the error in D7 to 9, you just put the 2 inside the 100. Okay, so the next error is F3 and F4. F3 is power loss and F4 is under voltage. So as you see in the description, these are monitored the incoming AC line for low voltage or line power interruption. So these two error technically is related to street input power voltage. So and whenever the coming voltage from street and utility has a problem, so which is it could be a power loss or also under the voltage, you get these two errors. So F5 is over voltage, so you actually see these error whenever you get the spike from street. I don't know if that's there is actually some problems over there, or whenever is a thunder or something like that, you if you get the spike from the street, usually get F5. And also it could be motor regeneration. So we talk about this, we mentioned whenever the the rotor, technically electronic magnet in the rotor, turn faster than the electromagnet in the stator. So technically the motor play the generator rules and somehow give the power back to the VFD. So if that's the case, you actually could get these error too, which is F5, and you need to actually have dynamic brake resistor that we already explained in one of our videos. Okay, so the next fault codes is F6 and F7. Let's first focus on F6. F6 is motor stalled, so that means if your motor overloaded physically, so that means it's so heavy to turn, so usually you actually get these F6 errors. So F7 is similar, so it is motor overload. So if your motor overloaded and it draw the more current than whatever you set in P33, so usually you get this F7 error. So the next fault code is F12. It is hardware over current. So if you check the description, it says check for excess load, improper DC boost setting, DC brake volt set too high, or other cause of exceed current. So usually these error happen whenever drive output current is greater than hardware current limit. So that means if your drive send the current that is out of the hardware limit, current limit, so usually get these error. So whenever you see error, just check your motor and load. So the one that you have on the plate of your motor. So check then the drive, actually the plate or label that you have, and make sure the drive is the right size to run your motor based off the information do you have on the motor plate. And also you make sure you actually set all parameter to the VFD correctly. So remember early in these series of the video, I think that was the first video we mentioned, there is a parameter that somehow you tell the VFD what is the your motor and give some information about the motor. Make sure that all that parameters actually is correctly set for your driver. Okay, the next fault codes is F13, F38, 39, and 40. So these are actually a ground fault. So these are happen whenever short circuit happen between the motor ground and the phases that you have. So for testing that, make sure unplug your motor from the VFD and use your DMM short circuit test and test the short circuit between ground and each phase. So that means one time ground to P1, second one ground to the phase 2, and the third one ground to P3. So if you have any shortness between ground and these three, for sure it could be actually cause these four fault codes. So it could comes from the wire that you have, or could be actually motor itself. Okay, so the next fault code is F41, 42, and 43. So these are the short circuit related errors. So usually you see these errors whenever short circuit happen between the motor phases. So similar with what we had for the uh, ground fault. So for you first disconnect your motor from the VFD, and for F41, 42, 43 should be check short circuit between phases. So you put the DMM on the short circuit test, and you test the short circuit between P1 and P2 and P1 and P3 and also P2 to P3. So it could be different reasons. Sometimes you actually They put the motor works in watery or humid places and make the circuit, and you never know. So if you get any of these 41, 42, 43, just make sure check the short circuit between phases in your motor. So again, it could be just the wire that you use connect the motor to the VFD, or could be a motor itself and this short circuit happen inside the motor rather than the cable that you use. So I hope you like this video. Thank you for watching.